In a city drenched by a relentless storm, we meet a young man named Soma Kazuya. His office is a scene of chaos, his boss enraged. Kazuya takes the blame with a tired, apologetic smile, just your average working adult struggling to get by. Even his forced grin is met with scorn from his superiors. He's ordered to redo his work with no end in sight, so he kneels to pick up the scattered documents, all while trying to calm his bosses down. At this job, his duties extend far beyond his desk. A senior colleague thanks him for taking the fall. He's far too busy with clients to do his own work, of course, leaving Kazuya to carry the weight of others' mistakes. He timidly brings up the promotion he was promised, a promise that's always just out of reach. The clock strikes 2 in the morning. The office is dark and silent, save for the lone silhouette of Kazuya still working. He gazes out at the sprawling city lights, a world he can see but never be a part of. He turns back to the screen, the work never ending, until his body finally reaches its limit. And Soma Kazuya collapses onto the cold office floor. He awakens adrift in a vast, cloudy expanse. His mind struggles to comprehend where he is. A mysterious woman begins to read his life's summary. She confirms his worst fear. He died from overwork. And apparently, that makes him the perfect candidate. Kazuya is now in the strangest job interview of his life, or afterlife. She presents him with the 3 essentials for living. Apparently, cats are a priority. But with a disarming smile, she pulls out a giant hammer. With a sudden fury, she declares that people like him have no love, no money, and worst of all, not even a cat. Kazuya can only beg her to stop the madness. She points, stating there's a perfect title for someone like him. A title he receives with zero enthusiasm, the strongest corporate slave. He feels this is a fate worse than death, a new kind of torture. Slumped in his chair, he just wants to be left to rest in peace. But his plea is met with a sudden lunge as she screams in his face. She continues her tirade, hammering home his pathetic existence. She scoffs at his desire for death, revealing he's being reincarnated as a hero. He weakly asks who this strange woman is. She is Omiru, the god of another world. And so, Kazuya finds himself in another job interview. An interview to become a hero, the final stage of which involves being pushed out a window. He plummets through the clouds towards an unknown land, convinced he's about to die all over again. But instead of a splat, his landing is a blinding explosion. He opens his eyes to find he's been caught by a mysterious bandaged hand. His savior, a woman with fiery red hair, casually asks if he can't fly. Kazuya's mind reels, his world turned upside down. He finally accepts that he's been reincarnated into another world, a world with bumpy, unpaved roads, and buildings straight out of a fantasy game. But it's not the scenery that captures his attention. It's the endless suffering of the people lining the streets. The faces of the survivors are etched with exhaustion and despair. Kazuya asks where all the young people are, only to learn they've all perished in the war. And this last bastion of humanity is surrounded by the Demon Lord's army. His savior tells him he needs to see the truth with his own eyes. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to witness. A monstrous horde stretches as far as the eye can see. Kazuya wonders if he skipped the tutorial and went straight to the final boss. This fortress, Rockfort, is all that stands between humanity and extinction. Yet his guide, General Helga, seems completely unconcerned. Because their grand army is just a handful of wounded soldiers and elderly civilians. Kazuya knows this is a losing battle, but he turns to Helga, hoping she has a plan. She calmly begins to lay out her grand strategy. Step 1. Acknowledge they're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. She then performs some very precise calculations. Her math reveals each of their soldiers must defeat 1,000 enemies. Kazuya can only give a thumbs up, realizing their general is a complete idiot. A compliment she takes with immense misguided pride. But Kazuya brings them back to the one glaring problem. How exactly does one person defeat 1,000 enemies? Her grand strategy is simple. Just kill 1,000 enemies before you die. Kazuya gives another thumbs up, his face screaming, "Amazing!" A compliment she takes with a level of pride that is truly concerning. But his attention is pulled away by a small tug on his coat. He looks down, his sarcastic demeanor fading instantly. A wounded child asks if the goddess will forgive him if he fails. The crowd's fanatical devotion erupts into a chaotic argument. Kazuya cuts through the noise with some blunt fatherly advice for the boy. He then turns to the people, assuring them that he and the general are enough. But far across the battlefield, the enemy's true leader is being hailed. A subordinate reports that a hero has been summoned, but she's confused by their strange offer to surrender. The Demon Lord seems intrigued by this unexpected news. His monstrous army roars, eager for the fight. Meanwhile, Kazuya lectures Helga on basic military logic. He claims his terrified shaking is all part of the strategy. Suddenly, a colossal foot slams onto the battlefield. The demon lord himself has taken the bait. Kazuya looks up in horror, realizing their bluff actually worked. But Helga's eyes gleam with cold, unwavering resolve. Her bandaged hand tightens on her sword hilt. She plants her foot, cracking the very ground beneath her. With a battle cry, Helga surges forward in a storm of lightning, a lone silhouette charging against an impossible foe. But the demon lord meets her charge with a devastating kick, sending the general flying back in a helpless spin. His subordinate can only watch, confused by this turn of events, because the one who stepped forward was not the general but Kazuya. He bows his head, offering no resistance, and presents himself to the demon lord as the captured rebel leader. And with the practiced bow of a corporate drone, he pledges a lifetime of servitude to the demon lord. But the dark ruler questions what he could possibly gain from this. Kazuya's confident facade cracks, fearing he's miscalculated. Suddenly, a pair of swords are thrown between them. General Helga rises from the dust, undeterred. She issues a direct challenge to the demon lord himself. The stage is set for a one-on-one battle. A battle Kazuya and the demon subordinate are now watching from afar. He looks at her, suddenly realizing they might be the same kind of person. Her grip tightens, raw power coursing through the blade. With a furious glare, she promises him that he will live to regret this moment. Kazuya learns that Helga is considered the strongest swordsman in history. The demon subordinate watches, believing that in a one-on-one fight, Helga might actually be able to defeat her master. The demon lord unleashes a torrent of dark energy, but Helga charges headfirst into the darkness. Her blade cuts through the shadows with a brilliant flash of light. Kazuya shields his eyes, realizing this human missile might actually win. The subordinate asks him to tell Helga she's always admired her. The battlefield erupts in a pillar of blue light, but Helga's triumphant expression turns to shock, because the demon lord stands completely unfazed. He caught her ultimate attack with just 2 fingers. He scoffs, regretting he even bothered to block it. He stands over the defeated general, offering one last chance. We flash back to the day she received those bandages, a demonic bind designed to drain her immense power, a seal she was forced to wear until this very day. The flashback explains that once the demonic bind is released, all the magic it absorbed over the years will return to its host. Back in the present, Helga unleashes that very power. The bandages that once sealed her strength now become her weapons, stretching out like living tendrils. The demon lord watches, his crimson gaze unwavering. Helga strikes, forcing the dark ruler back for the first time. Kazuya suddenly wonders if his surrender plan was a bit premature. The bandages ensnare the demon lord, absorbing his immense power. She declares that against this seal, his strength is utterly useless. She reveals her one and only strategy, to strike at his most vulnerable point. Her blade closes in on the demon lord's eye, but he meets her attack with a surge of raw power, a desperate gamble against overwhelming might. Kazuya screams a warning, already a loyal employee. The demon lord unleashes a devastating counterattack, an explosion that rips through his own forces, annihilating everything in its path. A terrifying display of unrestrained power. The demon subordinate looks on, wondering why the goddess chose such a pathetic hero. We see a memory of Helga's past, surrounded by comrades, a past that left her standing all alone. But even now, she vows to see this fight through to the end. The demon lord's helmet shatters, revealing he's more upset about his favorite accessory. But Helga's eyes widen in disbelief, as she recognizes the face of the goddess herself. Before she can process this, a dark hand closes in. The battle ends in a single brutal moment, revealing the demon lord's true form. Kazuya stares in horror, asking why the dark ruler has the face of a god. His mind reels, confirming the impossible truth. But the demon lord simply repeats her earlier question. Kazuya knows his next words will decide if he lives or dies. The demon subordinate watches on, certain he's doomed. She even offers a quiet farewell to a fellow corporate slave. But instead of an answer, Kazuya lets out a pathetic whine, a sound that completely catches the subordinate off guard. His eyes snap open with a sudden, desperate idea. He throws his head back and begins to bark like a dog. She stares in horror, realizing he's fully committed to being a loyal pet. The demon lord finds his act amusing, asking if he truly hates being a hero. A cruel smile spreads across her face. The subordinate realizes he gave an answer no one could have predicted. She accepts his offer, vowing to make him an example for all. Kazuya fully commits, barking with a crazed grin. Meanwhile, the defeated Helga watches this pathetic display. She questions why the goddess chose such a man to be the hero. But in his mind, Kazuya sees himself with a classy necktie. and a pair of incredibly stylish boots. He realizes all his past suffering was just training to be a hero. He declares that he has finally grasped his true destiny, a destiny that Omiru quickly cuts short, telling him to stop posing. She explains the grim reality. For 500 years, every hero has failed. She even admits she'd lose in a direct fight, prompting Kazuya to suggest summoning more heroes. But the rules of the dimension are absolute. One hero, one demon lord. A sentient book appears, calling the goddess an idiot for forgetting the basics. Omiru responds with a swift punch, silencing both the book and Kazuya. But Kazuya is unfazed, reminded of the unreasonable demands of his old life. A sly grin spreads across Omiru's face as she reveals she's found a loophole. She's trying a new strategy, one Kazuya assumes is because he has no talent. She confirms the rules allow only one hero to exist, but what if that hero could summon all the others? A god's power is to summon a hero, and a hero's power is a gift from the god. So what if she gave the power to summon heroes to a talentless guy like him? Kazuya realizes he would hold the power of every hero that ever existed. Omiru celebrates, thrilled that he's finally caught on. With an army of legendary heroes, victory would be all but guaranteed. But Kazuya, ever the pragmatist, points out a simple flaw in her plan. She glares at him, calling him a coward for his cautious thinking. But she reveals she's already prepared a solution for that very problem. A special liquor that can paralyze the Demon Lord for 1 minute on contact. Kazuya believes that with this power, taking down the Demon Lord will be easy. But his mind is already on what comes next, imagining himself as the god-chosen king who will rule the world. He assures the goddess that he's actually quite skilled at management, citing his experience with simulation games as proof he's the right man for the job. But Omiru shatters his fantasy, screaming that he's got it all wrong. His mission is simple: reincarnate, summon the heroes, and then die. She clarifies that the liquor isn't even for him. It's for Helga, the one who will actually rule. A single tear falls as Kazuya's dream of a better life crumbles. He can't believe she's so casually sending him off to die all over again. He asks if she cares at all about his feelings. He realizes that in this grand plan, he gets absolutely nothing in return. Omiru watches his breakdown with a cold, unreadable expression, and then she bursts into a fit of laughter. She casually tells him she's already thought about his reward. He apologizes, sure that a goddess wouldn't be as cruel as his old boss. She then reveals his original fate, to be reborn as an ant. A worker ant, to be precise, with no future of his own. A fate she demonstrates with a single, merciless flick. But if he helps her, she'll make a special exception, and let him be a honeybee next time. Still a worker with no future of his own. But at least he'll get to see the sun and some flowers. Kazuya asks if being human is completely off the table. He doesn't even care if he's destined to die pathetically again. Omiru cheerfully explains it's because his ancestors didn't grind enough good karma. The scene shifts to a vast, endless library. She erupts, screaming that he should be honored just to be a part of her plan. Defeated, Kazuya can only surrender. With a tired wave, he finally agrees to her terms. He sits slumped in his chair, a broken man, before a goddess who floats with casual indifference. Omiru unleashes her divine energy, ordering him to accept it. The power surges through Kazuya in a wave of pure agony. He screams that she never mentioned this part of the deal, realizing she simply didn't care enough to warn him. But his suffering is met with a bored yawn, a classic management technique. She points to a glowing gate, telling him to get a move on. Kazuya is left a hollow vessel, his face a void of darkness. But in that darkness, Kazuya has a sudden epiphany. He tells Omiru his miserable life wasn't from a lack of effort. It was because he always let others decide his fate. He thanks the goddess for this revelation, realizing that to change his life, playing by the rules was never an option. Omiru questions his sanity, tired of his strange monologue, and Kazuya responds by smashing the liquor bottle over her head. He stands over the stunned goddess, his rebellion finally beginning. Omiru can't believe he used her own weapon against her. Her rage boils over, furious that a mere mortal dared to strike a god. Her body contorts with fury, promising to turn him into a worm. No, something even worse than a worm. A creature destined to live its life buried in garbage. But her tirade is cut short by a splash of golden liquid. Kazuya pours the rest of the bottle over the fallen goddess. She realizes the Demon Lord's paralytic agent works on gods too. He tells her that her helpless rage is a look he knows all too well. But Omiru knows she only has to endure this for 1 minute. She tries to fight back, but her body won't obey. And Kazuya takes this opportunity to return some of her earlier hospitality. He explains that she chose him because he seemed easy to control, but he refuses to give her the chance to punish him. His eyes burn with a newfound resolve. He will never again live his life according to someone else's rules, and he forces the rest of the paralytic agent on the helpless goddess. It's a final farewell to the obedient man he used to be. With a final, decisive blow, he makes sure she can never retaliate. The deed is done, a line has been crossed. Kazuya collapses, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He realizes in horror that he's just killed a god. He looks down at the fallen goddess, realizing if he can kill a god, then there's nothing left to fear in this or any other life. He sets his sights on a new goal, to defeat the demon lord. He will live a life more intense than anyone could imagine. A life where he stands at the top as the new ruler of this world. Meanwhile, the divine library descends into chaos. The sentient books panic, having no idea what to do now. We cut to the royal capital of Orville in the New World, where Kazuya is already pledging his undying loyalty to the kingdom, a pledge that the demon lord finds rather premature. He snaps to attention with a crisp salute. But the other officials question his new, low-ranking position. We flash back to 1 month earlier, right after the battle, where Kazuya's training began by jumping through hoops. Quite literally, in fact, the subordinate declares him the demon lord's new pet. He asks if she understands the concept of a metaphor. She explains that in this kingdom, they take things very literally. His training continues with biting practice, a task he commits to with a disturbing level of enthusiasm. A lesson that ends with a swift kick from his new trainer, leaving him sprawled out on the grass, defeated once again. She reminds him that he threw away victory just to save the people of Rockfort. He remembers the face of the young boy he was trying to protect, and admits with a single tear that he just wanted to sound cool. His reward for this grueling training is a bowl of food. She clarifies that it's officer-grade meat, not actual dog food. The distinction is very important, apparently. She then offers him a piece of advice: to always obey the demon lord's orders and bide his time for an opportunity. From that day forward, Soma Kazuya never uttered a single complaint. He woke before the sun, more disciplined than any military dog. He guarded the camp with unwavering diligence, even during bath time. He was more dedicated than any actual canine soldier, throwing himself into his training with a terrifying intensity. His efforts earned him a place among the demon lord's elite guard dogs. It took humanity nearly 500,000 years to evolve. But Kazuya went from loyal pet to tax office captain in just 45 days. The other officials are baffled by this sudden promotion, but the subordinate explains the demon lord needs an outsider to handle the kingdom's internal affairs, a chance that Kazuya has no intention of wasting. He walks the streets of the capital, a new man in a new world, but his corporate instincts kick in, warning him not to stand out. He has a title but no instructions, a classic recipe for taking all the blame. Kazuya realizes with horror that this is just his old life with a fantasy skin. He desperately tries to force a positive mindset, much to a local merchant's dismay, but he steals his resolve, deciding any change is better than his old life. He arrives at his new post and presses the button. The door slowly creaks open, revealing 2 beautiful elf women who ask if he's their new captain. And just like that, Kazuya decides this new life might be worth living after all. They take his hands, warmly inviting him to come in. Kazuya's mind explodes with joy at this unbelievably kind workplace. He's already planning their future, moving a bit fast for a first meeting. The white-haired elf explains he just needs to sign some papers, a request he immediately mistakes for a marriage proposal. But the dream quickly turns into a nightmare. The blonde elf's smile turns sinister as she hands him the document, and Kazuya is suddenly on his knees in an execution yard. He tries to go out with a cool, defiant speech, an attempt that is immediately and violently shut down. A high-ranking official explains that the 6th tax unit is a failure. Their vice-captain Harmond can only weep and plead his loyalty. Another member, Merritt, is bound and suspended for all to see. And then there's the unit's pet panda, who is just vibing. Finally, there's Kazuya, the newly appointed captain, and all of them have been sentenced to death. But the executioner's dramatic speech is ruined by a wardrobe malfunction. Kazuya realizes workplace bullying here is on a whole other level. The official makes a quick, desperate attempt to fix his hair, frantically trying to restore his dignity before the execution. The official introduces himself as Griffono, a pure-blooded elf, and the man who will kill Kazuya once he gets the glue off his hand. We flash back to the subordinate's warning about this very man, a warning delivered while Kazuya was being walked like a prized show dog. She explains that Griffono has long coveted the director's seat, and will undoubtedly see Kazuya as a threat to his ambitions. Kazuya asks his backer what her plan is to counter this. She smirks, revealing she has 2 strategies in mind. Back in the present, Kazuya can't help but mock the name. He scoffs at the elf's pride, comparing it to a pet's pedigree. He explains that where he's from, only ranchers care about pedigrees. a comment that earns him a rifle to the face for insulting the man's hair. Kazuya recalls the agonizing power he received from the goddess and the brutal training he endured under the demon lord. Now, even he doesn't know the true extent of his own strength. His new subordinates watch in awe, their hope suddenly rekindled. The executioners can only stare, paralyzed by his immense pressure. He asks if these small fry truly believe they can kill him, shattering his restraints with ease, and with a burst of speed he charges at the terrified guards. The guard can only watch in terror. As Kazuya dodges with inhuman speed, he weaves through their ranks like a phantom, leaving the first man to fall without a fight. His comrades are frozen, unable to comprehend the scene. Kazuya grabs the next soldier by the ankle and begins to spin with incredible force. He uses one man to knock out the other. He snatches the rifle from his grasp and aims it with cold, deadly precision. He pulls the trigger and the first guard falls. The next guard tries to hold him down, threatening to bite him, a threat that Kazuya answers with the butt of his rifle. He leaves the second man unconscious on the ground. The remaining guards shout that the rifle is only loaded with blanks, but Kazuya never intended to use it as a firearm. He slams the rifle into the ground, sending the third guard flying. And just like that, only Griffino remains. The elf's hand trembles as he reaches for his sidearm. He pulls the trigger, screaming for Kazuya's death. But Kazuya doesn't even flinch, as the bullet screams past his head. He dodges the shot with impossible ease. His cold gaze meets Griffono's terrified one. And with a single decisive strike, the elf is brought to his knees. His new subordinates immediately bow, hailing their new captain. The two elves who led him to this trap are now his biggest fans. The entire 6th unit erupts in cheers for their incredible new leader. Even the guards who were about to execute them now pledge their undying loyalty. Fickle bunch, aren't they? But Kazuya silences their praise with a terrifying, unhinged grin. His new team can only wonder if their captain has completely lost it. Kazuya warns them that if they're going to use force, then he will show them absolutely no mercy. Just kidding, of course. He then charges forward, much to the guards' confusion. Kazuya realizes he just dodged a shot that was never fired. He closes the distance with a manic, terrifying grin and slams into the first unsuspecting soldier. The brutal impact sends the man reeling. Kazuya follows up with another devastating blow. He leaps forward with a powerful mid-air kick, only to be sent tumbling back across the yard. His new team immediately loses faith, convinced they're all doomed. But Kazuya confirms that Plan A has failed, and it's time for Plan B. He slides across the ground, putting distance between himself and the guards. Griffono watches this pathetic display with a look of pure contempt. His anger quickly turns into a fit of mocking laughter. He taunts the defeated Kazuya, asking if this is all he's got. The elf reaches for his sidearm, ready to end this farce. A bullet cracks the wall just inches from Kazuya's head. Griffono offers him a deal with a smug grin. He tells Kazuya to get on his knees and bark like a dog, a humiliation that would end his ambitions for good. Harmon begs him to just surrender, seeing no shame in admitting defeat. But Kazuya explains that he became a dog, so that no one else would have to. Griffono and his men just think he's trying to sound cool in a losing fight. But then Kazuya springs to his feet with a sudden burst of energy. He lets out a primal howl that echoes through the yard. Meanwhile, his former trainer sleeps soundly, surrounded by actual dogs. A chaotic dream sends her tumbling through the air. She wakes with a start, her peaceful morning ruined. Back in the yard, two shadowy figures blur through the streets. Kazuya scales a nearby wall in a single bound. He races across the rooftops at blinding speed, leaping across the city like a phantom. His true objective now clear. Griffono scoffs, telling him that running away is useless. But his taunt is cut short by a massive explosion, a blast that ruins both his speech and his carefully styled hair. Griffono's eyes widen in disbelief as he recognizes the newcomers. They are the Demon Lord's personal guard dogs, an elite and terrifying pack. He screams, demanding to know how Kazuya can possibly control them. Kazuya explains they are colleagues, bonded by their time as military dogs. He asks with a wicked grin what happens to those who harm the Lord's pets. Before Griffono can answer, the first dog lunges, followed immediately by the second, each one clamping down on an arm. A third leaps for his face, a flurry of teeth and fury, while the smallest of the pack finds a strategically painful place to bite, and the largest one simply holds the elf's head in its mouth, ending the fight. Griffono tries to argue a technicality, screaming that Kazuya is no longer the Demon Lord's property. But Kazuya simply tells the elf woman to take a closer look at the contract. They realize in horror that he never signed his real name. He explains it was the name he was saving for his future child. The blonde elf's eyes fill with tears at this tragic news. She collapses, convinced she's just thrown away her one chance at true love. Her priorities are certainly in order. Kazuya offers some cold comfort as the other elf tries to console her. Meanwhile, Griffono, an elf with extensive experience in surrendering, finds his brain unable to process this sudden turn of events. Every muscle in his face begins to move at once. His face contorts into the most subservient smile imaginable. He claims the whole execution was just a harmless welcome prank, a likely story. But Kazuya's grip on the rifle only tightens. He reminds the elf that in this kingdom threats are taken literally. He takes Griffono's gun and presses it to his own head. His eyes burn with an unwavering challenge. The elf's hand begins to tremble uncontrollably. Griffono's bravado shatters into pure, unadulterated fear. Kazuya screams at him to pull the trigger, to follow through on his threat. We flash back to Griffono's past, a noble child scorned by the common folk. We see his past where whispers called him useless, a spoiled prince trying to prove his worth to his people, a task that ended with an arrow in his butler's head. Archery was clearly not his strong suit. To earn his throne, he joined General Helga's hero party. He even offered the legendary warrior a place by his side, believing he would defeat the demon lord and win her heart. But his advances were met with a cold, paper-shredding rejection, a rejection that sent him spiraling into darkness. He turned to the demon lord, hoping to force Helga to be his. But his surrender only earned him more humiliation. The demon lord repeats the same cold question she once asked Kazuya. Griffono tries to explain his reasoning, his voice filled with desperation. But his plea is met with a swift and brutal punishment. A searing liquid melts away his pride and his armor. The demon lord dismisses him, leaving him broken on the ground. He recalls his ambition to prove his worth in the final battle. He had promised the demon lord a bloodless surrender from Helga's forces. But Kazuya's own surrender plan completely ruined his moment. The demon lord had simply cast him aside, his usefulness at an end. He remembers paying a fortune for his position, a price for nothing. He screams that it's not fair, that they're both traitors. But Kazuya is the only one the demon lord favors. But Kazuya's confident smile reveals this was all part of the plan. We flash back to his trainer, who offered him two simple strategies. Plan A was a head-on assault, a show of overwhelming force, while Plan B was to simply beg for mercy, a solid backup for sure. But Kazuya explained that his favor with the demon lord is a complete lie. To maintain the illusion of strength, he has to act arrogant, like a two-bit thug who's gotten completely full of himself. And so he stands before the enraged elf, his bluff holding strong. Kazuya admits the elf's power is so immense it's hard to breathe, and that his subordinates are far stronger than the demon lord's dogs. He knows Griffono could end this with a single pull of the trigger, but the elf is still paralyzed by the fear that Kazuya is the demon lord's favorite. So Kazuya decides to add a little fuel to the fire, with a brutal insult aimed right at the man's biggest insecurity. His new subordinates realize he just signed his own death warrant. Even Griffono's men are screaming for him to open fire. The elf's face twists with pure, unadulterated rage, but just as he's about to act, a sudden thought stops him cold. He wonders if Kazuya's weakness was all an act, a calculated move to make everyone underestimate him. He sees the immense shadow of the demon lord looming behind our boy, a terrifying authority that Kazuya wields with a mad grin. He realizes Kazuya isn't just a man, but a tool of the throne. But Kazuya's next move is something no one could have predicted. With a flash of steel, he gives the elf a brand new look. A look that is decidedly less majestic. His subordinates can only scream at the sudden horrifying baldness. Kazuya explains, this is just a cost-saving measure on behalf of the kingdom. Griffono bites his lip, a dawning horror in his eyes. He realizes this man simply cannot be killed as a soldier falls. Kazuya applauds the scene, calling it a glorious sight. His arrogant act has convinced everyone he is the demon lord's favorite. But his victory is cut short by a dark presence in the sky. A bolt of twisted energy streaks across the heavens. A monstrous eye tears through the clouds, its gaze fixed below. The very entity that killed a goddess has now come for Kazuya. But our boy just declares the employment ceremony over. Casual. The scene shifts to a snowy battlefield, where a new figure stands among the fallen. Kazuya wonders why no one is moving. Griffono is frozen mid-fall, a dog still clinging to his back. The entire yard is caught in a moment of suspended animation. He realizes with a jolt that he can't move either. The entity from the library appears, calling him out for his crime. It rages, reminding him of the moment he struck down the goddess. It complains about the divine overtime needed to fix his mess. Apparently, even sentient magical books get bags under their eyes. As it vents its frustration, the clouds begin to pour from the heavens, forming the very fortress where the goddess once resided. Kazuya realizes with dread that this divine fortress has come for him. He's suddenly suspended in midair, bound by the very clouds of heaven. A grid of red light appears, a divine security system locking him in place. But a new figure appears, her boot pressing down on his face. She calls out to someone named Antiphon, while Kazuya thanks her for the unique welcome. The giant eye notes that even its time-stopping power has no effect on her. She raises her sword, demanding to know where the goddess Omiru has gone. Kazuya recognizes the voice of the sentient book from the divine library. But the book, Antiphon, denies her an answer, stating she's no longer a manager. And Kazuya is left stunned, realizing the Demon Lord's true name. The Demon Lord scoffs, seeing the clouds of heaven gathering against her. But Antiphon warns her not to underestimate the power of a god. She responds by unleashing her own immense energy. The divine grid struggles to contain her raw power, but she shatters it with ease, a wicked grin on her face. All while Kazuya gets a rather uncomfortable front row seat to the action. She leaps into the sky, a phantom among the clouds. She lands on a floating platform ready for the next assault, effortlessly weaving through a storm of dark energy blasts, forcing Antiphon to unleash a massive, concentrated attack. Her crimson eyes narrow with unwavering focus. She meets the divine blast with a single, powerful swing. Her blade cuts through the energy, creating a massive shockwave. But her expression is one of pure annoyance. Antiphon warns her not to get full of herself. The heavens themselves gather into a storm of divine fury. But the Demon Lord unleashes a power she calls mortal force. Golden light begins to rain down upon the frozen city, spreading across the capital like a gentle, glowing snow, and forming a massive, radiant crown in the sky. The Demon Lord stands, a queen crowned in golden light. She rockets through the heavens like a comet of pure defiance, unleashing her own barrage against the all-seeing eye of Antiphon. A wild, almost joyful grin spreads across her face. Her eyes burn with the thrill of a true battle. But Antiphon scoffs, revealing this is merely a projection of its true self. Kazuya groans, tired of this "my real body is elsewhere" excuse. He tries to warn the Demon Lord about the intruder in her divine home, all while the clouds of heaven try to invade his every orifice. The Demon Lord's smile fades, realizing they are truly dead set on killing her. She plummets from the sky in a spinning vortex of light and shadow, a living meteor wreathed in crimson lightning. She slams into the ground with explosive force, and lands without a scratch, ready for more. Kazuya thanks her for saving him from that rather personal divine attack, but her gaze is fixed on the dark fortress still looming above. She prepares to unleash a new power, one she calls Gaia Force. With a roar, she summons the very gates of the underworld. Skeletal hands begin to pry the massive doors apart, and a new terrifying ally peeks out from the darkness. A three-headed skeletal beast rises from the darkness. She calls forth a creature known as Skull Seraphis. Kazuya, meanwhile, is still trying his best to play dead. Its bony hands stretch out from the underworld gate, reaching for the divine fortress in the sky. Antiphon watches this display, finally understanding. It realizes the Demon Lord has mastered both mortal and earthly forces, a power that Omiru had completely misjudged. The Demon Lord stands ready to unleash her full might, and Antiphon now sees why Helga never stood a chance. The Demon Lord explains that Omiru realized no hero could ever stop her, so she abandoned her fortress and fled the dimension in shame. Her last selfish order was to kill the man who surrendered to her. But Antiphon sees them both as nothing more than self-important fools. It recalls the moment Kazuya struck the goddess down, an act no one predicted. The Demon Lord cuts the book off, ordering it to serve her once more. Her skeletal beast rises, a titan of bone and spectral fire. It lunges forward with terrifying speed, shattering Antiphon's projected form with a single decisive blow. And the divine fortress itself begins to crumble from the impact. The Demon Lord realizes the book dragged the entire divine fortress here. She stands triumphant as the illusion shatters around her. A wild grin spreads across her face, her goal finally within reach. But Antiphon explains that Cloudfort is a prize only a true god can claim. The divine structure begins to dissolve into the air, fading away like a dream at dawn. The Demon Lord watches, her victory turning to dust. She realizes there are no shortcuts to divinity. Antiphon turns its gaze to Kazuya, promising to wait for him. A promise that gives our boy a very bad feeling, and with a final crack, the all-seeing eye vanishes from the sky. The skeletal beast orders its master to stand down. As time resumes, Kazuya realizes he can finally move again. The chaos of the execution yard returns in full force. Griffono is overwhelmed, his face a mask of terror, but a sudden, brutal impact stops him cold. A devastating blow ends his struggle instantly. Kazuya can only watch as the entire yard erupts in violence. Griffono's men are cut down in a flash. leaving nothing but silence in their wake. And Kazuya, his expression hardened by the sudden carnage. The demon lord realizes this is the collateral damage from time being stopped. And across the capital, buildings begin to shatter, exploding into crystalline fragments, as the very fabric of the city comes undone. Kazuya watches in horror as the world crumbles around him. His face is a mask of pure, unadulterated shock. His new subordinates are caught in the chaos, with Harmon screaming in panic. But Merritt calmly tells him he's fine, he just lacks guts. Great pep talk. The demon lord stands alone amidst the ruins of her kingdom, her eyes narrow, her gaze fixed on the devastating aftermath. The demon lord mocks Griffono's unfortunate reaction to the chaos. She turns to Kazuya, asking if he's also paralyzed by fear. He struggles against his frozen limbs, trying to force himself to move. But his training kicks in, and he snaps to attention with a salute and a bark, a response that earns him a smirk of approval from his master. She orders him to go assist someone named Marie with the cleanup. Leaving Kazuya with the impossible task of explaining all this destruction, she tells him to blame it on anything, a natural disaster or just a big fight. Kazuya stares out at the ruined capital, the scale of the task dawning on him. He realizes his first assignment is to just make something up. Sounds familiar. The night sky hangs heavy over the ruined capital. Meanwhile, a strange creature is having a very bad night. Its output freezes over a nearby window, as a horde of its brethren swarm the city in a chaotic frenzy. His former trainer arrives on the scene, demanding to know what happened. Harmon explains that he knelt down and sneezed, and the next thing he knew, the entire building collapsed. He wonders if he's finally awakened his latent psychic powers, but Merritt quickly shuts him down. He argues the point, but she just offers a patient, knowing smile. She points out that all the wreckage was sliced clean, as if by a blade. Merritt adds that the air is thick with a sinister, otherworldly magic, but his trainer, Marie, quickly silences her. Harmon realizes that if the panda hadn't blocked the attack, they would have all been consumed by those strange creatures, a process that ends in a rather undignified way. Marie thanks the heroic panda for saving them all, a compliment the panda takes with a very flustered blush. Merritt translates his happy noises, much to Harmon's confusion. She explains her past gives her a unique insight into the male mind, regardless of species. Harmon then turns to Marie, asking what she knows about the incident. But Marie tells him to forget her old titles, for the human kingdoms are gone. She warns him not to get close, calling herself a traitor. He then asks about Kazuya, who is busy with a thankless new task. He's now in charge of delivering bad news with a positive corporate spin. He tells a crying child that her father died a hero's death. A small comfort as her mother pulls her into a tight embrace. Kazuya explains the man was crushed while saving others from the debris. His next meeting is with a pregnant woman, her face a mask of grief. She cradles the life she now has to protect all on her own. And for once, Kazuya seems to be at a complete loss for words. But the woman coldly states that the man he described was not her husband. Kazuya then delivers the man's actual last words, a request to pay his brothel tab. The widow collapses in her chair, her world completely shattered. Her grief turns to rage as she screams into the empty night. She begs Kazuya to at least tell her the real story of his death. But our boy can only offer a sad, apologetic smile, a practiced expression for a man who's an expert in delivering bad news. Later, Merritt asks why he endured the widow's rage just to protect a lie. Kazuya doesn't answer, simply returning to his paperwork. She walks away, convinced that he and his entire unit are insane. Merritt tells him to direct his anger at her, his supervisor, and shield. She turns back, confused by his quiet resolve. Kazuya sits at his desk, his voice low. He just didn't want their deaths to be meaningless. He then finds his locker vandalized, a classic workplace welcome. He runs a hand over the splattered door, a familiar feeling sinking in. We flash back to his training days, a room full of hostile glares, where he was forced to eat alone, enduring endless mockery, and Merritt, his current subordinate, watched it all with a cruel smile. Back in the present, Harmon tells him to hang in there, that things will calm down. He explains Harmon was once a ruthless money fiend. Merritt offers to track down the culprits and deliver a proper punishment. Harmon then reveals Merritt's past is shrouded in rumor and powerful connections, a background that Kazuya finds very impressive. Kazuya holds up his defaced jacket, saying he understands their point, but his eyes burn with a quiet fury, as he declares that he is not okay with this. The bullies just laugh at his defiance from across the room, a mistake they realize as Kazuya strikes the first man without warning. He smiles, telling them their laughter is contagious. The bully's eyes glow with rage, his fury building. He roars, flexing with enough force to snap his strange outfit. The rest of the unit can only watch in stunned silence. He lunges forward, ready to crush the man who dared to defy him. But Kazuya just calmly picks his nose, unimpressed by the display. The bully stops mid-attack, scolding Kazuya for his poor manners. A nearby official cheerfully confirms the punishment is death for his entire family, a fact that sends a cold sweat down the bully's spine. Kazuya uses the distraction to land a devastating kick to his face. The man collapses, desperately pleading that he wasn't the one who did it. Kazuya points to the locker, demanding to know if this was his work. The man tearfully denies it, and Kazuya calmly accepts his answer. He then turns to the crowd, asking them to name the real culprit. The first bully, now tied up, immediately points to a man eating nearby. The accused soldier looks up, completely caught off guard. Kazuya's hand flashes out, demanding he name someone else. The slap echoes through the room, a brutal interrogation tactic. He moves down the line, his question punctuated by another strike. The next man's face contorts under the force of the blow. And just like that, the blame game continues down the line. Kazuya asks why the blame keeps getting passed along. A soldier explains it's because he's the only one left to hit. A logic Kazuya accepts before delivering another brutal slap. He looks at his hand, complaining that it's starting to swell. He decides that to be fair, he'll just have to hit everyone. He explains this is the same as picking a fight with the whole squad. He steps onto a stool, declaring that what truly matters is that no matter who the culprit is, he is not okay with this. He strikes a pose, offering to forgive the unhappy soul who did this. And from the sidelines, Merritt watches, finding him rather interesting. He realizes the more confidently he acts, the more everyone believes he's the Demon Lord's favorite. He wonders where Griffono has gone during all this chaos. We cut to a strange mushroom resting on a man's face. A surreal scene unfolds in a land of giant fungi. A white-haired figure uses the man's head as a golf tee. He swings with brutal force, calling his victim useless. The man, who looks a lot like Griffono, begs for his life. His pleas are answered with a foot stomped on his back. The figure, Lord Estito, questions why his tee is moving. Griffono can only lie on the ground, weakly protesting his fate. Lord Estito confirms his uselessness as another victim is sent flying. The elf is struck again, his body now covered in strange, parasitic fungi. Estito reveals the only reason Griffono is alive is for betraying his own people. But the two elf women from Kazuya's unit arrive, trying to calm the furious lord. They offer themselves to Estito in exchange for Griffono's life, promising to do absolutely anything he asks. A desperate and revealing offer to save their former leader. An offer that clearly piques Lord Estito's interest. He accepts their terms with a cruel, triumphant smile. He accepts their offer with a dark, possessive grip. But his response is a sudden, brutal act of violence. Griffono can only scream in horror at their sacrifice. Their bodies are left twitching as strange fungi sprout from their necks. Estito explains that demons possess the traits of 4 ancient races, and with the potential of humans, they are the perfect life form. He proudly declares himself the 10th child of the Demon Lord, and scoffs that even royal elves are nothing compared to him. The women are somehow still alive, their bodies feeling strangely light. Griffono desperately begs the Lord to punish him instead. He screams that they are the only family he has left. Estito looks on, a strange expression on his face. He finds their unwavering loyalty enviable. He mocks the elf, an heir whose family doesn't hate him. They even offered their lives to protect him. He erupts in a fit of jealousy, a classic case of divine sibling rivalry. We learn the Kingforges are the 9 original demons. The first generation, created by the Demon Lord herself. These powerful beings then created the second generation, who in turn created a third, ever-weakening lineage. But Estito is a second-generation demon, personally created by the Demon Lord. Yet he's the only one who wasn't given the title of Kingforge. He sees his siblings as nothing more than tools of war. While he was born to build a new kingdom for their mother, he screams that he is the true favorite, his eyes wild with fury. Griffono tries to placate him, promising the elves undying loyalty. Estito then asks why he would pick a fight with Kazuya, a question that leaves the elf completely paralyzed with fear. He explains Kazuya is just a tool for rooting out internal corruption, and with that, he lifts the terrified elf by his head. Estito thanks the elf for giving him the perfect excuse to rebel. He offers some final, condescending advice for the elf's next life, but 2 strange maids suddenly appear, interrupting the execution. They report that the tax office repairs are now complete. Estito tells them to wait, as he's in the middle of something important. But they warn him that this will affect his kingdom contribution points, a very bureaucratic way to stop a murder. He reluctantly agrees, his plans for bloodshed put on hold. But his calm demeanor shatters as his head suddenly rips from his body. A new, more monstrous form emerges from the stump of his neck, holding his own screaming head like a trophy. He explains Astido has the power to create entire cities. Back in the present, Kazuya treats his new team to a meal, but their lunch is interrupted by a sudden tremor. A massive hand descends from the sky, lifting a building with ease. Kazuya wonders if the kingdom's construction is just that shoddy, but Harmond explains this is the work of Lord Astido. Merritt adds that he's the one who was backing Griffono, a revelation that completely ruins Kazuya's appetite. The citizens cheer, hailing Astido as the kingdom's future. One of his strange subordinates wonders about his contribution points. She reports his contribution points are far ahead of the other second-generation demons, but she notes his head still hasn't returned to its original form. His monstrous body squeezes his own head with a painful grip. He complains about the constant pain, worried about the long-term effects. A unique HR problem, to be sure. His maids look over a model of the capital, realizing there's no more room to build. Astido panics, shocked that he's already developed the entire city. One of them explains he's close to catching the lowest-ranking Kingforge, but the other argues the Kingforges earned their points during the war. He laments that he was born in peacetime, leaving him with only city building. He must earn his points slowly, one castle at a time. He screams in frustration, wondering how many years this will take. His maids try to cheer him up, offering some very strange encouragement. But Griffono sees the truth. Astido is just a lonely child starved for affection, and so the disgraced elf makes his move, getting dangerously close to the demon lord's son, an act his maids find absolutely delightful. Griffono claims he looks up to him like an older brother, but his words are followed by a very strange pointed gesture. He unleashes a bizarre rainbow energy from his mouth into Astido's. The maids cheer on this very unique form of male bonding. Astido looks down, his face covered in a strange fungal slime. Griffono sees a last glimmer of hope in his desperate eyes. He tries a sudden fatherly compliment, an attempt that sends Astido's head spinning with rage. He strikes the ground with blinding speed, unleashing a strange substance that consumes the disgraced elf. Astido scoffs, unimpressed by the pathetic attempt at flattery. The two elf women are caught in the attack, their faces twisted in horror. Their bodies are consumed by the strange growth, becoming part of the landscape. Astido declares they will all become fertilizer for his new kingdom. But his tantrum is interrupted by a ringing telephone. One of his maids answers, asking for the caller's name. Astido shouts that he doesn't want to see anyone right now. She relays the message, even if it's the fifth Kingforge calling. The caller, a white-haired woman, screams in frustration. She demands to know if her brother said anything else. The maid relays a simple offer: kill Soma Kazuya, and a seat among the Kingforges will be hers. Astido's eyes gleam, believing his time has finally come, but his other maid reminds him he's still grounded until his fusion is complete. But Griffono, ever the survivor, offers Astido a great idea, a plan to earn 10,000 points and eliminate Kazuya. But the demon lord's son quickly silences him, annoyed that the elf's desperate plea is interrupting his thoughts. We cut to Kazuya, surrounded by guards in a tense meeting, where Merritt delivers some rather chilling news about his immediate future. Kazuya demands to know why the threat is so specific. She explains that his fate is already sealed. Her cold gaze confirms the warning is not a joke. Kazuya wonders who could possibly kill the demon lord's favorite pet. Merritt lays out a precise timeline of events, detailing Astido's movements down to the second. She even includes the exact duration of a call from the fifth Kingforge, all leading up to the moment she arrived to warn him. She then asks for his thoughts on her detailed report. Kazuya can't believe she connected all these random facts to conclude that Astido is trying to kill him. She calmly explains she just wiretapped the call, leaving Kazuya to wonder what the point of her dramatic monologue was. Merritt urges him to hurry, but our boy points out she's the one who wasted all that time. They arrive at a massive, foreboding fortress under the night sky. A safe house, she explains, built by a hero 2 centuries ago. Kazuya immediately starts sucking up to Merritt, calling her his senior. Harmond is stunned, asking if she means Raphael, the strongest hero ever, a hero who fought the Demon Lord for 30 years straight. Merritt cuts him down, calling his life pathetic despite his knowledge. She then turns to Kazuya, revealing his resistance was the weakest in history. But Kazuya argues that makes him the most efficient hero ever. Harmond tells Kazuya to run, warning him not to get caught in this fight. But he admits that without their new captain, they'd already be dead. Merritt adds that Kazuya protected her dignity back in the yard. Kazuya just asks if it's really a good idea to make enemies of co-workers. The soldiers who bullied him now kneel, admitting they were wrong. Kazuya recalls his first day, when his entire unit faced execution. He remembers how Merritt was singled out for a special kind of humiliation, a memory that still fills him with a quiet disgust. The soldiers bow low, offering their deepest apologies. Kazuya tells them to hold that pose while he works out some frustration, a response that earns him a look of newfound respect from Merritt. The scene shifts, the gears of the past beginning to turn. He and Harmon ascend the fortress in a rickety elevator, but his team is left behind, shouting as he makes a run for it. Kazuya shouts for his team to turn back, but they chase after him, Merritt even scolding the panda for running upright. He warns them that a powerful figure wants him dead, but Harmon screams that they already know it's a trap. He asks why Kazuya is the first captain to treat them like actual people. He reminds Kazuya that he's the one walking into his own execution. Kazuya looks out at the night sky, his expression unreadable. He recalls the moment the goddess tried to kill him, and how he fought back without hesitation. He remembers Antiphon's divine judgment, another attempt on his life. He recalls dragging innocent people into his fight, a fight he refuses to let anyone else take the blame for. Because if his comrades die for him, he'll never be able to live with it. So with a casual wave, he walks off to face his fate alone. Meanwhile, inside the elves' sacred barrier, Astito screams in disbelief, seeing someone who should be dead. A cloaked figure asks if he really thought he'd be the only survivor. We flash back to the Fifth King Forge offering a single coin and a mountain of gold to hire this mysterious assassin. Her plan is simple: kill Kazuya and make it look like revenge for Helga. She's addressing the strongest assassin of the former hero party, Helga's most loyal hound. Meanwhile, Kazuya's team arrives at the fortress, a bastion against the coming storm. But they're stopped at the gate by a nervous maid asking for the password. She's quickly surrounded, claiming she's just a simple servant who knows nothing. She then creates a rather unorthodox diversion, much to the guard's shock. A distraction that allows her to unleash a spinning, bladed attack. Her friendly facade shatters, screaming that Kazuya's bounty is hers. But her assault is stopped cold by a gun barrel pressed to her head. In the Demon Lord's name, the trespasser is sentenced to death. And just like that, the legendary assassin is left unconscious on the floor. A man with star-shaped glasses reports to the Secretary General, who praises his work and reminds him to clean the floor. Because even super soldiers have chores, his unwavering obedience is broadcast across a wall of monitors. Kazuya, watching from behind, regrets sending his team away. He facepalms, believing he's lost his chance to look cool. But the Secretary General thinks he's just gained a point. She seems to read his mind, offering to explain who her guards are. We see another one of them standing over the captured assassin. They are genetically modified super soldiers, and number 38 has just claimed his prize. Another, number 33, is the last line of defense protecting the palace. She explains that only she and the Demon Lord can command them, much to number 40's dismay. They are the Forbidden Guard, F4, an elite team with a flair for the dramatic. Kazuya can only pledge his undying loyalty, trying to make sense of it all. But the Secretary General reveals a chilling truth. The Demon Lord has no idea Astito is trying to kill him. She claims she only sent her guards because she felt sorry for him. A condescending lesson on not getting too full of himself. Kazuya argues back, recalling the time the Demon Lord saved him from Antiphon. But his desperate plea is met with a cold, unimpressed silence. Suddenly, one of the guards grabs him, calling him a cornered rat. The Secretary General reminds him of his confusion when the Demon Lord first appeared at the tax office. She demands to know if he understands why the tax office was destroyed, and reveals the Demon Lord has been secluded in the Astral Tower ever since. Kazuya puts the pieces together, realizing she's searching for Cloudfort. He remembers Antiphon's words, confirming the Demon Lord was once its manager. And now she's trying to find a way to reclaim her lost divine throne. But the Secretary General brings him back to the present, demanding to know his role in the chaos. His attempt to deflect is met with a swift and brutal punch, a lesson in honesty that leaves our boy seeing stars. She threatens to abandon him to Astito's assassins if he dares to lie. Kazuya realizes that telling the truth might just drag this terrifying woman into his problems. He knows that for a secretary, learning your boss's secrets is a crime. The Secretary General screams that they're supposed to be on the same side. But Kazuya just offers a calm, knowing smile. He laments that his attempt to be normal has only made things more suspicious. So he decides to tell her the truth. The Demon Lord came to save him. A revelation that leaves her demanding to know why. Kazuya begins to explain, his expression serious. And with a sudden move, he unleashes his full corporate power. From the fortress of bureaucracy, a storm of paperwork is unleashed. A tidal wave of documents that threatens to bury her completely. A single room is launched from the fortress, leaving the Secretary General standing in stunned disbelief. She can only question if the entire room just flew away. Her guards scramble, shouting to protect her from the chaos. One of the F4 grabs her, ready to evacuate, but she calls out for Kazuya. But our boy is already sailing across the night sky, screaming her name, a very dramatic way to quit a meeting. We cut to a hand placing a block on a tower, a delicate game of power. For Lord Estato, destroying buildings is just like playing Jenga. Within his domain, he can build and distort reality at will. And one of his maids has just found Kazuya on their map. She points to a single block, his exact location now known. Estato gives the order to mark his target for elimination. His maids deploy a swarm of fluffy trackers through the vents. The tiny creatures float through the ducts, silent and unseen. They pour into the room, a seemingly harmless dust in the air. Kazuya stands with Harmond, completely unaware he's been found. A single tracker lands on his shoulder, sealing his fate. Estato orders his maid to slice the entire building apart, a precise strike that will leave the Secretary General unharmed. And in the real world, the fortress begins to shatter into pieces. The Secretary General begins to explain the truth of that day. A flashback shows one of Estato's maids smashing through a wall. Kazuya's face blurs with shock at this new revelation. As Kazuya's room was launched into the sky, one of the F4 guards tried to stop it by force. He braced himself, trying to hold the structure in place, but the attempt failed, adding another casualty to the list. His hand is torn away as he screams the Secretary General's name. From the bushes below, Merritt witnessed the entire scene. She claims to hear his voice from the moon, while her team enjoys a snack, glad to see they have their priorities straight. Harmon suggests they finish their snack before checking if their captain actually landed on the moon. But Merritt is already on the move, riding her panda into the night to rescue him. Meanwhile, Estato confirms Kazuya has landed exactly where he planned, right into an ambush. But his victory is interrupted by a sudden phone call. It's the 5th King Forge, and she is absolutely furious. She accuses him of open rebellion against the Demon Lord's new government, and threatens to burn his entire kingdom down if anything happens to Kazuya. Estato just listens with a sinister grin, his own script taking an unexpected turn. Back in the flying room, Kazuya holds the unconscious guard, wondering what it all means. As his makeshift escape pod continues its journey across the night sky, the guard recalls that during the castle renovations, he accidentally blew Kazuya right off the construction site. He immediately dove after the falling man. The two of them plummet through the night air. The guard reaches out, promising a swift rescue. He catches Kazuya, soaring through the sky with him in tow. Kazuya offers a pained compliment on the rather aggressive catch. The guard tries to grab the fortress to stop their momentum, but his hand is completely torn away in the process. And so, the two of them continue their unplanned flight into the night. The guard accuses Kazuya of being a liar for trying to protect him. He begins to wrap them both in a protective cocoon. Kazuya's eyes narrow, confused by this sudden turn. They're left bundled together on the floor of their flying room. Kazuya can only stare, trying to make sense of the situation. He then notices one of the fluffy trackers on his face, telling him he can't die yet. The guard insists this will keep him safe, but Kazuya tells him to stop playing the hero. Their makeshift escape pod soars through the night sky toward a distant quarry. It smashes into the ground from 200 meters up in a massive explosion, but their fall is cushioned by a mountain of the fluffy trackers, saving their lives. The Secretary General radios in, demanding to know the King Forge's true intentions. But the 5th King Forge plays innocent, feigning ignorance about Soma Kazuya. She casually mentions the human she accidentally blasted away, and declares that if he survives, it's just a minor construction accident. Back at the crash site, a storm begins to brew. Rain pours down on the wreckage of their flying room. Kazuya lies on the ground, dazed and soaked from the impact, until one of the F4 guards makes a very dramatic entrance. He casually asks Kazuya how he's feeling after the crash. Kazuya gives a thumbs up, insisting he's fine. Politeness is key, even after falling from the sky. The guard notes that Kazuya's brain is clearly not working right. Meanwhile, Estato confirms he's set up a little welcoming party. He declares that whatever happens next has nothing to do with him. But the guard just continues his march, his expression grim. As the rain pours down, dozens of footsteps approach. They're met by a sea of black umbrellas, an army of assassins. Kazuya realizes the King Forge never meant for the fall to kill them. The assassins cry out for revenge, their faces twisted with rage. We see a glimpse of their handiwork, swift and brutal. A crew of killers with a very specific taste in eyewear. The wounded assassin can't believe his comrade sacrificed himself just to lure one man out. But the F4 guard just hoists Kazuya onto his shoulders, ready to fight while carrying him. His one-handed partner picks up a nearby cane, vowing to be his other arm. And together the two of them stand against an entire army of killers. The guard with the star-shaped glasses charges forward, lightning crackling in his fist. a lone figure running headfirst into a sea of enemies. The battle begins with a single decisive stomp. The assassins swarm him, a tide of black suits and vengeful fury. He's dragged to the ground, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of their numbers. But he rises again, a storm of motion in the heart of the mob. The first assassin leaps forward, his umbrella sword aimed for the kill. But his attack is cut brutally short by a well-aimed kick. Another killer slips behind the guard, convinced he's found an opening. But his blade is stopped cold as his arm is caught in an iron grip. The assassins' resolve wavers, but their orders are to press the attack. Their leader screams that retreat is not an option. And so the mob surges forward, trying to overwhelm the lone guard. His one-armed partner sees the enemies packed tightly together and leaps high into the air, positioning himself above the fray. He brings his cane down with devastating force, ready to clear a path. The cane smashes down, sending a shockwave through the crowd. But another assassin appears, armed with a trio of crowbars. The assassins realize their human wave tactic has backfired completely. Their leader screams that insulting the plan is a capital offense. The one-armed guard lands perfectly on his partner's shoulders, a two-man fighting unit ready to take on the entire mob. They become a whirlwind of destruction, tearing through the assassins. The one-armed guard calls out a command to his partner. The guard with the star-shaped glasses unleashes his own power, summoning a storm of thorny vines to ensnare his foes, but the assassins' chains find their mark, binding the guard in a storm of lightning and steel. Their leader explains his cursed blade paralyzes its victim. He smirks, proud to have captured one of the Demon Lord's elite. But his victory is cut short by a sudden, shocking turn, because the one-armed guard has just joined the fight. He grabs the chains, pulling the assassins off their feet, using their own trap against them in a flash of lightning. The leader stomps him to the ground, demanding he let go, but the guard's grip is absolute, his defiance unwavering. The assassin leader stomps on the guard's head, screaming in rage. But the scene suddenly cuts to a movie theater, where two figures watch the battle unfold. They complain about their constant suffering, wondering if their own body is fighting against them. Another version of Kazuya appears, scolding them for forgetting their original vow. He triggers a flashback to Kazuya's grand declaration, a move the audience calls out as stalling. The various Kazuyas begin to have a collective meltdown, a breakdown our boy desperately tries to ignore. They argue that in the age of short-form content, there's no time for character development. They just want him to get on with the fighting so they can go viral. A very modern problem, I suppose. But Kazuya's resolve hardens, declaring that only he gets to insult himself. One of his inner selves calls him brain-dead, suggesting a better plan, all while the screen shows the brutal reality of the fight outside. Another part of him just wants to give up, to let it all burn. The entire theater of his mind erupts into a chaotic debate. So the main Kazuya issues a challenge to his other selves, a challenge that is met with a resounding, pathetic silence. He looks down, his inner conflict reaching a breaking point. He admits he's a wreck, but asks if he's ever truly given up. He screams at his other selves, demanding to know who can back up their words. But another part of him scoffs that if it were easy, it would already be done. He reminds himself that he's already died and come back once, that he was turned into a dog before earning his freedom. He asks if it's so wrong to want an easier life now. But another part of him screams that his grand vow was just a childish dream. He questions if he deserves to die for failing to achieve it. And back in reality, Kazuya lets out a roar of pure frustration. His inner self points, declaring that part of him is now dead. As the screen flashes back to the brutal reality of the fight, a hammer is raised, a symbol of the violence outside. The assassin leader screams at his men not to kill their target. The assassin screams that everyone just laughs at him. And inside his mind, Kazuya's other selves can only panic. But back in reality, Kazuya takes the blow, his face a mask of blood. And in that moment, something inside him finally snaps. The assassin leader is sent flying, his weapon knocked from his grasp. The F4 guard's glasses glow with a menacing red light. He pins the hammer-wielding assassin, who screams in defiance. But the guard simply bows his head, activating slaughter mode. His fist erupts in a storm of crimson energy, and he brings it down with brutal, decisive force. Kazuya can only watch as his protector unleashes his full power. The battlefield erupts in a blinding flash of crimson light. A devastating attack that wipes out the entire mob. But a new figure in a yellow helmet appears amidst the carnage. The assassin leader stares in horror from the molten ground. The newcomer stands alone, surrounded by the fallen. The last of the assassins is left broken and defeated. He questions Kazuya's sanity for protecting his own bodyguard. But Kazuya lies in the rain, a faint smile on his face. He lifts his head, explaining that this is how they win. The last assassin is taken out by a precise laser blast. The star-glassed guard declares his duty is to protect Kazuya. We flash back to the fortress with the guards wondering where Kazuya flew off to. The Secretary General screams into her radio, demanding answers. But the 5th King Forge just plays dumb, stalling for time. So the Secretary General unleashes a massive beam of light from the heavens. She's done with the games as a grid of lasers fills the sky. She gives a new order. Bring Soma Kazuya back alive. Her subordinate questions this, believing the guard with Kazuya has it handled. But back on the battlefield, the star-glassed guard knows this is very, very bad. The newcomer reveals his team, a group of shadowy assassins. Their leader, I'm Grim, claims to be Helga's former teacher. He accuses the F4 guard of killing his other students. He explains they were all war orphans he took under his wing. He trained them to be humanity's last hope. He mourns their deaths, blaming Kazuya for Helga's fate as well. But Kazuya's inner monologue has had enough of this. He's basically giving a writer's workshop in the middle of a fight. He reminds him that Helga chose to fight the Demon Lord, and that she lost that battle all on her own. He claims Helga died an honorable death, exactly when she was meant to. But Kazuya's inner voice wonders what their tragic backstories have to do with him being the one they're trying to kill. He calls out the old man for teaming up with the Demon Lord's forces, and asks how he can possibly act so self-righteous. The F4 guard can only watch as Kazuya's inner rant continues. A brutal punch sends the old man flying. A mental scoreboard declares Kazuya the winner of that exchange. The guard is impressed, but Kazuya claims he's not scared of a few more foes, before admitting that he probably can't beat them. Classic Kazuya. Kazuya's inner voice admits he may have provoked them a bit too much. The F4 guard is stunned by Kazuya's sudden lack of confidence. He recalls the guard's immense power, a force he's only seen in the strongest beings. Meanwhile, Aim Grim begins a very strange lecture using a bull puppet and a monkey puppet to explain the world's power levels. He details the various stages of growth, culminating in a massive power spike, a lesson that seems a bit out of place for a life-or-death battle. The F4 guard can only watch, confused by this impromptu puppet show. He questions the old man's childish methods, a critique that Aim Grim takes very, very personally. Kazuya's inner voice scoffs that the lecture just isn't cool enough. But Aim Grim argues that world building needs to be clear and accessible. He mocks the idea of using cheap tricks to seem original, concluding that when it comes to power systems, clarity is everything. The mental scoreboard declares a tie, much to the guard's annoyance. The old man then scoffs that the guard hasn't even reached level 50, and that his powerful laser was a one-time genetic enhancement. The F4 guard screams back, demanding to know how he knows this. His partner confirms it's true, much to the guard's frustration. Aim Grim reveals the fallen assassins were just bait to force out his ultimate move. He reveals the true threat is his academy's top 7 students. A new team of assassins appears in the storm, each one possessing a power that rivals the strongest heroes. The scene cuts to a man with a pompadour, yelling about proper safety procedures. He claims he's just trying to keep his passenger safe. The pulley strains as he hoists the basket at incredible speed, sending the one-armed guard on a very unwilling ascent. They finally reach the top of the cliff. The guard scrambles out, ordering his partner to follow. But the man with the star-shaped glasses just keeps working the lever. The pulley shatters, the escape plan falling apart. Aim Grim smirks, impressed by the guard's sly attempt. But the rope snaps, sending his partner plummeting as the old man taunts him from below. The star-glassed guard stands alone, vowing to protect Kazuya from the elite assassins. One of the students confirms their mission: get past the guard and kill the target. Aim Grim praises his student's quick grasp of the situation. The masked student scoffs, believing this will be a piece of cake. But the fight begins and ends in a single, brutal instant. The F4 guard stands over him, a golden weapon smoking in the rain. With his top student defeated, Aim Grim decides to send in the rest of the class. The one-armed guard stands over his partner, a makeshift weapon in hand. But the star-glassed guard reveals his own golden firearm. He smirks, explaining they have surprises of their own. Meanwhile, his partner is having a full-blown panic attack on the cliff's edge. Apparently, super soldiers can still be afraid of heights. A new challenger, a massive masked wrestler, charges into the fray. The F4 guard opens fire without hesitation, but the bullets bounce harmlessly off the wrestler's iron-hard skin. He follows up with a rapid-fire barrage of powerful punches. The guard is sent reeling, unable to damage the massive man. But Aim Grim reveals the wrestler's one weakness. His strength is only average. The wrestler politely asks the guard to step aside, a request the guard answers by shoving his weapon into the man's mouth. He's shocked to find even the man's insides are invulnerable. But a new challenger appears, a swordsman with a gleaming blade. He strikes with incredible speed, sending both men flying. Imgrim praises his student, a genius chosen by a holy sword. But the F4 guard has a sudden, brilliant realization. He confirms that if the wrestler is stronger than the sword, he's the perfect weapon. He then uses the wrestler's head to block the next attack, before throwing him at the swordsman, who vows to never trust humans again. The F4 guard just smirks, his confidence unshaken. But a new challenger appears in the rain-soaked distance. An assassin strapped with dynamite offers some friendly advice, suggesting his opponent should really quit smoking. He stomps his foot, ready to charge forward. But Imgrim reveals this student has regeneration as he's sent flying. The F4 guard watches, completely unfazed by the display. The battlefield erupts in a massive, fiery explosion. Imgrim explains that at this level, they're practically monsters, a fact that sends the F4 guard into a fit of rage. The one-armed guard screams, demanding to know where his backup is. The Secretary General screams back that they're all completely useless. We see a montage of the other guards getting absolutely demolished. One is taken out by a boxer with a single punch. Another is sent flying by an acrobatic fighter, because compared to the elite F4, no one else stands a chance. The Secretary General wonders if the rest of her forces were hired through connections. She's haunted by the image of their overwhelming failure, a failure she blames on a flawed exam-based system. The scene cuts to the Secretary General, now a captive, trying to bargain for her life. A new assassin appears, complaining she's stuck on cleanup duty. While the others are off hunting Kazuya for a shot at glory, Harmon screams at her to leave them and go after their captain. But his defiance is met with a sudden, brutal attack. The assassin unleashes a devastating kick in the pouring rain, but another soldier leaps in to take the blow meant for Harmon. A sacrifice made by a man who feels he's made nothing but mistakes. We flash back to Merritt, who believes she can hear Kazuya's voice from the moon. She leaps onto her panda, determined to go and save him, and Harmon, after a moment's hesitation, decides to follow with the snacks. A map shows their journey from the fortress to the quarry. Harmon and Merritt can only watch as the battle ends in a brutal flash. But a new threat appears as red lasers fill the sky. Two masked figures arrive, apologizing for the interruption. The map updates, showing their next destination is the forest. Harmon tries to explain he's just an innocent bystander. But the F4 guards are looking for their comrade, Soma Kazuya. Harmon laments his earlier belief that 4 guards meant an easy win. Meanwhile, the rest of the 6th unit races through the rain-soaked forest, a desperate search for the captain they left behind. The entire 6th unit is sent tumbling through the air. A colossal foot slams down, scattering them like leaves. Harmon screams a warning about the sudden ambush, as a mysterious figure begins a silent countdown. The forest floor erupts in a massive explosion. Harmon stares into the rain, wondering who their attackers are. His first thought is to find Merritt and get her to safety, but his panic is cut short by a sudden impact nearby. A wild, triumphant grin spreads across his face. He stands over a fallen assassin, his counterattack a success. The assassin glares at Harmon, her patience wearing thin. She asks why he won't fight, but he refuses to help her. She scoffs at his cowardice, telling him to stay out of her way. But in his mind, Harmon is just playing a part, while she complains about being stuck on cleanup duty. Instead of hunting Kazuya for a shot at the hero's crown, he watches as she unleashes her frustration on a fallen foe. His mind flashes back to a memory of a young child, a memory of a past he's tried to forget. Back in the present, his resolve hardens, a strange flower clip in his hair. He admits that today has been a series of wrong choices, a decision that's immediately met with a brutal kick. The impact sends a spray of red across the scene. Merritt can only watch in horror, her face splattered. As Harmon collapses to the ground, utterly defeated, the assassin stomps forward, ready to finish the job, but Harmon uses his last breath to tell Merritt to run. She refuses, declaring she can't be the only one to escape. We flash back to a meal, where he told her she reminded him of his daughter, a memory of a time she felt safe, her suspicions proven wrong. He recalls telling her that his ex-wife was a world-class beauty, but in the present, the assassin just screams at the useless old man. She declares he's not even worth the effort to kill. Merritt's voice is cold as she calls out to her companion. Her eyes burn with rage as she gives a single chilling order. And behind the assassin, the unit's pet panda rises to an impossible size. Its eyes glow with a menacing, otherworldly light. The killer can only stare, wondering if the creature was always this big. But she steels herself, ready to face this new threat. A resolve that's met with a devastating kick from the enraged animal. But her attack is stopped cold by the panda's massive arm. The assassin's mind struggles to process this impossible defense. The gentle giant then unleashes a flurry of its own, a rapid-fire assault of powerful, oversized fists, Merritt asks Harmon if he feels better now, as the panda dunks the assassin like a basketball. The killer is left broken and defeated in the pouring rain. Merritt stands over her, offering one last chance for final words. But the assassin just glares back, daring her to pull the trigger. A single shot echoes through the moonlit forest. We flash back to a memory of a red-haired girl and a strange, mustachioed man. The red-haired girl's ear twitches, catching a distant sound. She and Aim Grimm stand before the fiery aftermath of the last battle. The old man notes that one of his students has met an unexpected foe, so he orders 2 more assassins to ignore the guard and kill Kazuya. The first is number 3, a silent warrior whose only weapon is speed. The second is number 7, a beast girl with immense strength. They combine their powers, racing across the battlefield to reach their target. But back in the quarry, the F4 guard is still standing. The regenerating assassin watches, wondering if the guard is even human. He's reverted to a newborn state to heal, which is just all kinds of weird. The beast girl calls for a pause amidst the chaos. She suggests a new plan to her speedy comrade. They'll use their combined skills to buy some time. But the F4 guard's cybernetic eye scans the high-speed target. He quickly locks onto their position. He realizes his friend Kazuya is their true target, a realization that fills him with a cold fury. The 2 assassins are suddenly caught in a ring of light. The speedster decides now is the perfect time for a love confession, a revelation that shocks his partner more than the impending danger. A new assassin unleashes a devastating attack, a colossal fist that shatters the ground below. We learn this is number 6, whose power is localized gigantification. He holds off the guard, telling his fellow assassins to press on. Meanwhile, the one-armed guard stands amidst the fiery aftermath. The regenerating assassin, now in his infant form, thanks him for the save. The speedster streaks away, leaving the others to handle the fight. The remaining assassins watch, confident that their strongest member has it handled. But their confidence is shattered by a sudden, impossible move, as a new figure catches a bullet with just 2 fingers. A new fighter with purple hair stands over the defeated beast girl. She offers to let one of them leave for interrupting her fight. She points to Merritt, making her choice. No, wait, she means the old man on the ground. And she'd never harm the panda, who is clearly a protected species. She reveals that number 8 has no special abilities, and tells them to choose who will face him. We flash back to Aim Grimm, who can't believe the accusation. The other students erupt in protest over the academy's rankings. They argue about favoritism and unfair advantages in their training. Aim Grimm suggests that number 8 is just a dead-end case. The other students erupt, calling it an incurable disease. He explains number 8 was the first to reach level 50, but never awakened to power. He assures them that one day they will all surpass him, but his lecture is interrupted by a sudden, shattering impact. The purple-haired assassin is now stuck in the wall, asking if they're going to fight. The red-haired student accuses him of using number 8 as a disposable pawn, but the trapped assassin just wants someone to pay attention to her. Priorities, I guess. Aim Grimm simply states that the mission was number 8's own choice, a choice that was made for the sake of number 8 himself. The purple-haired assassin tries to win over the panda, promising to care for it, but Merritt raises her gun, her hand trembling at the thought of the panda's betrayal. Her grip tightens, her resolve wavering. She takes aim, a gut feeling telling her this is a point of no return. Her face is a mask of conflict as she prepares to fire, but the shot is stopped cold, the bullet caught between 2 fingers. Merritt lowers her head, offering a quiet apology. Number 8 erupts into a fit of mocking laughter. He taunts her for her weakness, for abandoning her earlier resolve. But Harmon screams at her to ignore him, to prioritize survival over pride. Merritt offers to take the panda's place in the fight. She apologizes to Harmon for wasting their chance to live, a statement that leaves the old man completely stunned. Meanwhile, the panda continues its ferocious assault, but the purple-haired assassin seems completely unfazed, until the panda unleashes its ultimate weapon, weaponized cuteness, a defense so powerful, even the hardened killer can't bring herself to strike. But Merritt has a different kind of power in mind. She summons a massive glowing firearm from thin air, leaving Harmon to wonder what other secrets she's been hiding. The assassin's eyes widen, realizing Merritt is a spirit medium mage, a representation of her power, a lone figure in a vast, empty space. Merritt's hand flashes out, a small revolver in her grip. She cocks the hammer with a cold, steady hand, and presses the barrel to the defeated killer's head. With her spirit weapon looming, she tells the killer to choose her fate. The purple-haired assassin demands to know what she'll do. We flash back to the assassin's childhood, a time when she was praised as a genius for her deadly skills. But every night she was haunted by the faces of those she'd killed, a memory of a fallen foe, a ghost from her past. She recalls her teacher's words, a lesson in survival of the fittest, a brutal philosophy where the weak are simply food for the strong. A lesson she clings to just to keep the nightmares at bay. Back in the present, she unleashes a massive blast from her weapon, but number 8 takes the hit without even flinching. He lets out a wild, almost joyful scream, so she fires again, pouring on the pressure. She stands with a confident smile, sure of her victory. But number 8 just grins, mocking her with a twisted comment about friendship. Merritt realizes the assassin cares about fairness, that she's a good person who simply lost her way. She believes this compassion is a weakness the panda can exploit, a belief that is immediately and horrifically proven wrong, because the assassin takes the full force of the blast, shielding number 8 without a moment's hesitation. We see a memory of another student, number 10, being gunned down. Merritt understands now that this woman has thrown everything away. She can only ask why she would make such a sacrifice she didn't make for her fallen comrade in the past. The assassin repeats her teacher's cold, brutal philosophy, but Merritt screams back, asking why she protected her comrade. We flash back to the assassin's past, a time before the killing. A memory of her first birthday party, a concept she didn't even understand. Her fallen comrade had explained it was a promise to see each other again. A promise that brought a genuine smile to her face and tears of a joy she'd never known. Back in the present, she unleashes her rage on the landscape. She knows that if she saves Merritt, her entire world will fall apart. And Merritt realizes with horror that she's losing this battle of wills. She screams that if she saves Merritt, it makes all her past kills meaningless. She accuses Merritt of using magic to curse her mind, but Merritt can only cry, apologizing for wasting their chance to live. Her apology is cut short as number 8 grabs her by the collar. He throws her aside, his patience finally at an end. But the panda is there to catch her in a surprisingly gentle embrace. Harmon screams for the creature to run and never look back. The purple-haired assassin's rage boils over, vowing to kill them all. But a new group of assassins suddenly descends from the sky. Because why not add more people to the party? One of them notes that they're up against a level 50 powerhouse. He tells them to use the sealed light within their bodies, or they'll never be able to bring the guards down. We see the defeated assassin, number 9, who fought 3 guards alone. Meanwhile, Kazuya looks up as the storm finally clears. He notices a strange carving on a nearby stone pillar. He feels an odd connection to the message, as if it were meant for him. It's from Raphael, a legendary hero and his self-proclaimed senior, a hero who has been dead for 250 years. Kazuya breaks into a cold sweat, reading a message from a ghost. Raphael's letter continues, mocking his own legendary status in the present. Kazuya realizes he's trapped between assassins below and a ghost above. But Raphael's message clarifies he's not a ghost, just a man who saw the future. Kazuya can't believe the ego on this guy, showing off even after death. He dismisses the message, standing before a massive statue of the hero. But as he walks, his steps activate more glowing runes on the ground. The full moon hangs heavy over the silent, rocky pillars. A beam of light reveals a path of ancient, glowing text. A prophecy from his senior, warning that he's about to die. Kazuya just scoffs, saying that's been the theme for a while now. As the sounds of a desperate battle rage on far below him, Kazuya shouts, hoping the message also explains how to survive. He scrambles forward, desperate to read what comes next. But the only thing that appears is a massive number 5. He stares at the number, trying to understand its meaning. Then a 4 appears, and he wonders if it's some kind of code. As a 3 appears, his hope begins to fade into dread. The number 2 sends a wave of pure panic through him. And finally, the number 1 glows on the stone path. He realizes this isn't a prophecy, it's a countdown. He sits down, wondering what a man thinks about in his last 5 seconds. He closes his eyes, reflecting on his life, and the idea of living with no regrets. But he snaps, screaming that his life is full of them. He stomps the ground, refusing to believe some divine prophecy. With a manic grin, he declares he won't play along, but his tantrum is cut short as his hand hits something solid. He's uncovered a strange box hidden within the stone. His eyes narrow, seeing more text from the prophecy. The message praises his defiance, calling it the path to survival. And on the box, a final warning, one piece of advice. The full moon hangs over the smoldering battlefield. The F4 guard walks through the flames, his hair now a literal fire. I Am Grim questions his resolve, asking why a mere killer fights so hard. He reminds the guard that the kingdom's elite could arrive at any moment. But the guard's shadow reveals a monstrous, hidden nature. The old man notes his sudden change in demeanor. His eyes are drawn to the strange pink star on the guard's chest. He wonders if there's truth to the guard's words after all. So he shouts to the heavens, daring the kingdom's forces to appear. He screams for them to hurry up and arrest him. A very loud and public invitation. The battlefield smolders under the silent gaze of the moon. The F4 guard stands amidst the flames, his resolve unbroken. But Aim Grim just looks on with a condescending smirk. He explains that to the Demon Lord's forces, Kazuya is just a disposable pawn. But the guard clenches his fist, declaring that they are still here for him. The old man calmly repeats his question, asking where these so-called elites are hiding. The guard just stares into the night, promising they'll be here any minute. His cybernetic eye glows, sensing a sudden change in the air. And from the heavens, a massive beam of light descends. Looks like the cavalry has arrived. The F4 guard finds himself surrounded by two more of the elite students. The helmeted killer mocks him for letting his guard down. The wrestler from before rejoins the fight. His strength may be average, but his body becomes as dense and heavy as steel. The red-haired assassin screams for her comrades to press the attack. Another student summons a massive dragon of pure, crackling energy, while the swordsman from before meditates, summoning his holy blade once more. He explains that he's had a sudden flash of inspiration, a plan to combine the holy sword with the giant's power, a combination they believe will create the ultimate attack. But the wrestler refuses to be a part of their plan. A.M. Grim cheers them on, promising the winner will be the next hero. The F4 guard is pinned, caught in a storm of chains and fire. He knows that with his ultimate move already used, he has no choice but to reveal his final secret. Meanwhile, high above the battle, under the light of the full moon, the speedster and the beast girl scale the cliff face, racing towards their true target with inhuman speed, leaving the chaos of the battle far below. And Kazuya looks out, sensing the new arrivals.